Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's ECA Learning Zone webinar, all about the latest updates to the electrical OM software from Modexoft. Today's presentation will be led by ECA's technical manager, Shahid Khan. Shahid is joined by Spencer Henry, lead electrical OM software trainer at Modexoft. I'll shortly hand over to Shahid to make the proper introductions and for a very quick overview. But before I do that, just want to remind you that you can use the question mark button that should be on your screen now at any time during today's presentation to ask our presenters a question. Spencer and Shahid will pick out questions as they go along, so please don't wait until the end to ask your questions. Although we will also spend a few minutes at the end of today's presentation to go over any questions that haven't been covered during Spencer's presentation and demo. This webinar is being recorded and the full replay will be available on ECA's YouTube channel, and that's at youtube.com/ECA Live. And that's where we also host replays from the entire ECA webinar series, covering all sorts of industry-specific technical and business topics. So do check that out when you get a moment. And with that said, I hope you enjoy today's session, and over to you, Shahid.
Thank you, Omar. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this presentation. I'm really excited about this one. I've had quite a lot of experience with electrical OM with some of my university assignments, both at bachelor's level and at master's. And it's safe to say that it's always made me look better than I am, you know, so it's a really, really good package. So I'm really excited to find out more about what the guys have been doing, how they've improved their system. The other thing to point out is that electrical OM will be accompanying us when we do our Amendment 2 roadshows. So, you know, it's we are working closely with them. Today, I mean, Spencer's going to go over a brief overview of electrical OM. So that's, you know, for people that have never really seen the software, seen it working. He'll also cover some of the new features, particularly around fire cables, fire-resistant cables, BS8519. He'll also introduce the fastest import, but I think that's about enough from me. It's more important that you hear it from Spencer and the guys over at Electrical OM. So without further ado, Spencer, it's all yours, mate.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for attending. So I'm just going to go through a quick few slides. Sorry, it's a bit death by PowerPoint there. Just to go over a little bit about what Electrical OM's software is and what we're hoping to achieve by using the software. First of all, then, I'm going to start with just a little bit about the software in terms of what it's made to do. So we've really focused on modern methods of construction while we're looking at the functionality within the software. At its core, it is a calculation engine within a CAD environment. But we can do all sorts of very interesting things with this, and a lot of that development has always been focused around obviously BS7671 and various other standards from across Europe. So the software is really applicable for a number of countries, both within the UK and Commonwealth, that also use BS7671 in their electrical installations. Over the last 6 years, we've grown massively. We do have now over 500 UK clients with thousands of licenses out there, and we are catering to everyone from your small companies, one-man, two-man bands who might be just doing small domestic installations, all the way up to huge consultancies, your likes of your Atkins Globals, Hawley, these sorts of companies. So we really have a really wide range of ability there within the software. Just to go over some of the areas that we really focus on in there. So we've got a lot around our compliance section. So we have a lot of information and calculation data on sizing cables, protective devices effectively, and putting those into a CAD environment where you can see schematics and information building as things go. Here you can see a little bit about the schematic, and you'll see this a lot better when we're doing the demonstration a little bit later on. So we're automatically creating schematic details as you're including your data for your designs or any system that you're even doing a compliance check on, whether it be an EICR or an EIC. We also have a very in-depth selectivity study system within Electrical OM. We're checking various different forms. I believe now we're up to about 5 different forms of selectivity which are being performed within the software. Really driving, helping that compliance and ensuring that you're getting the best out of the value for the devices that you're using in those various installation types. We have our certification and reporting package. So we have all the standard forms, the EICs, electrical installation certificates, electrical installation condition reports, and minor electrical installation reports, as well as various things to do with fire alarm and emergency lighting. All of these can be found as you would find or you expect to find in any certification package. We also have our mobile app, which integrates with all this sort of information. So you can send out design data to the mobile app. Collection of information can be done on site. Our mobile app is completely open, so you can go on to any the Android or the Apple Store. You can download it straight to your tablet device or your mobile device and immediately start working that straight into your use of the software where necessary. We do have an ArcFlash for those of you that were interested in ArcFlash. We have recently done another webinar, which is also up on YouTube now. So if you do get the opportunity, please do go and take a look. Some really interesting information there, and is becoming a bit more prevalent here in the European Union as of particularly the last few years. We have integrated plans for our CAD applications as well. So if you've got architecture drawings, you can produce overlays and drop socket locations and lighting. With our integration of the software, it's automatically taking lengths of cables and information because of the scale of the drawing and applying that data into our designs as well. So everything is fully inclusive. We're reducing that need to do things multiple times. So as you do it once, your information is being collated from all these various locations to make the time taken to do these jobs much easier, much quicker going through there. Finally, for those of you that may or may not use these sorts of BIM information or the likes of Revit, we do have Revit integration, so we can interface directly with things like Revit Autodesk as an Autodesk developer. We can take various key information from those, bring it into the software, build schematics, put key information back into Revit, things like manufacturer types, models, makes of devices, various settings, cable sizes, cable types. So really focusing on that whole golden thread of information. What all this information means at the end of the day is we are producing a whole maintainable life cycle within the software. So you can maintain the entire life cycle of a system or an electrical system in a building where necessary, and hopefully you can see that through the wheel there what we've produced, is showing sort of the possibilities of working around those different systems in terms of then the construction all the way through to the maintenance and then the cycling out then of the building as well. So there's my death by PowerPoint. Thank you very much for spending the time having a look there. And the next thing we're going to take a look at now is we're going to focus really on some of the latest updates that we've provided into the software. So hopefully on your screens you can see the software. So this is a standard interface. I have pre-populated a small design here. I've just made this up and sort of thrown in there to identify a little bit of information around where we're working within the software. First of all, one of the things that we've added in the software is we've added a lot of new cable types. So we're always getting requests from our clients to add things like cable types and protected devices. In the last update, we've upgraded for 7 new particular types of cable and various bus bar ranges. So here, I'm just going to go into one of these here, and we can see If we go to our phase conductor options here, we have various standards from across the European Union. So for instance, we have EN standard cables here. So you will see we've got new sorts of cables like MYY. We've already had things like SY and CY, but it's things that we get often asked about for the software. So we've got a lot of cable systems in there. We've also added various more busbar trunking systems. We have manufacturer-specific information. One of the latest ones that we've added in there is Legrand Star. Excuse me. We've added in is the Legrand Starline. I don't suppose there's been any questions up to date.
None so far. So just a reminder to everyone that you can submit your questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll pick those up as we go along.
Okay, so
Spencer, I've got a question, if that's all right.
Yeah.
In terms of the manufacturer's information, how is that updated? Do they send you the files and then you have to do that manually, or can they automatically update that through the system? How's that done?
So currently we receive the information, we get the information direct from manufacturers. Once we have that data, then we review it, we put the data into the software, and where we can, we get then the manufacturers to then confirm and check the data before we send it out then as part of the updates. So I mean, for the likes of the new Legrand system here in the busbar, we've had, you know, very close sort of tie-in with the manufacturer on this one. So we've put the data in there, it's been with them, they've gone through all the information, they're checking that, you know, we're getting the right inputs and outputs from that data, and then we've released that once they're happy with what they're seeing in the software relates specifically to the software. Sorry,
that's brilliant. So it's accurate information straight from the manufacturer. Brilliant.
Yeah. The information is a lot of the time manually inputted. We have been working with other manufacturers, particularly where we come to things like protected devices. So we have links in with the likes of Schneider, who we have access to their own software with various information and curve data around protected devices. So we're able to take that data out and put it directly into the software. The same is with things like Siemens as well, where we're looking at their system like Samaris. And also other manufacturers are producing data in XML formats that we can actually bring in hopefully then directly into the software later on, using, you know, what we refer to generally as sort of an API of information. So, you know, there's a standardization to how that data is laid out, so we can easily incorporate it when necessary.
Hmm.
One of the next big things that we've added into the software is where we look at voltage drop within the system. For those of you that may be or may not be aware, we have BS 8519 in terms of cables under a fire condition and how long they need to operate within a building that may be under fire. So here I've added a very basic circuit for a fire alarm panel. And I've added in a fire alarm or a fire type cable. So here I've just gone for a standard sort of FP200. I've selected a manufacturer specific cable as well, because a lot of manufacturer specific cables will have specific current carry capacities and voltage drop rates that are available to them. So again, this is the information we get directly from manufacturers and put into the software, which is specific. I can select also general cables, which you can see here related to the tabulated values from the likes of BS7671. But we do also, like you see here, have very specific manufacturer data, which gives us better indication of the ability of those cables. So going to the voltage drop section here, we can identify how much of a cable in its run is under fire. So here I've currently identified, we've got about 20 meters that in the event of a fire is likely to be exposed to flame or heat, which will cause a rise in the heat of the cable, obviously causing an increase in resistance. So what we're doing here is, while that cable is under a high level of resistance, calculating to ensure that the voltage drop doesn't drop below a value which will stop that equipment from performing under that fire condition. So here currently is 20. So the software is automatically taking information like the length that we've already put in here on the phase conductor. I've also selected a 2.5. So here we can see that we're calculating for a 2.5 cable. If I was to increase this, I can increase it to a 4 mil. I can do it from here. But we can also do it so if you exceed your value, you can change your cable size directly from here as well to help improve any issues that you're having in that. You'll see various little information icons. So if you do want to see any more information around where we're referring to within these regulations or these requirements, you can select the information icons, and it will always bring up a little bit of information about what it is we're calculating for. So here we can see that this cable is being based on the tables that we're referring to in that document, that we're assuming that the cable may be under a heat of around about 842 degrees. So we can see what then effect that will have on the total voltage drop for that particular cable. So that's one of the first main updates that we've had in the software. The next one is we've had quite a few requests around frames within the software. So within Electrical OM, we've always had our own sort of standard little frame which pulls information automatically from various parts of our software. So for instance, if I go to our default frame, if I insert a frame here, we can see we've got a very basic frame that can go in for our drawing. This will then dictate the print size of our drawing. And down in the bottom corner here, then we can see a little bit of information. So it will automatically take things like your logo that you've put in there, the project information, title, addresses, and all this sort of information can be generally found here within the project info and options. So the information and data that we're supplying in here. But we were getting a lot of requests for people to be able to draw their own frames and create their own style of frames or use existing frames from their CAD systems. So we have included now a frame builder within the software. So here, if I go to our custom item here, it's going to bring up our frames library for some of the types of frames here I've produced. So I've got some pretty standard page size frames that I've put in here, and I've also created kind of a specialist one here. So I've added this one with various levels in it. So I'm going to input this into our drawing here. So I'm going to press OK. Now when I insert this as a frame, you can see that it's inserted the information with the frame, and I'm still able to pull in things like my logo and address information, and we can do that directly from inside the constructor as well. So here I'm going to go back into our custom frame settings, and I can create any new one by right clicking in the area. You can see we've got the create new option here. If you've already drawn a number of frames on one device and you want to share that with other people within the business, so you may be using the same frames, you can export and then import any frames that you've drawn here as well. I can also edit any of these frames. So if I select any particular frame here, right click and press edit, it's going to bring up this edit menu. For those of you that have used the software previously, this is very similar to the sort of interface that we have for creating your own symbols and symbol blocks within the software. But the difference here being over on the right hand side, where we have these information boxes here. So where we want to add various details like the project title and intelligent data, where we're referring to other locations in the software, we can select these icons and it will bring in the reference where the software knows then it needs to bring in that particular piece of information into that location in order to complete our frame data there. So everything's very now customizable. These frames, I actually started by bringing them in as an X reference. So if you have frames already made up in an external program like CAD or saved as Visio files or whatever they might be, could even be a excuse me, could even be a PDF file of some description. You can bring this in as an X reference and use that in our environment just here then.
Yeah, that's really clever. That I like that. That's good. Spencer, we have had a question come in now. It's not specific to the frames that you've been talking about, but it says, will the protection study provide a check for use with a UPS system?
Check for use with the UPS system. I don't recall having seen any requests on our system in relation to that, but I will take a note down. And if there's anything in specific that you're interested in putting in there, you have a specific request around that, by all means send the information and the query directly to us. So you can send it either to support@modexsoft.com or info@modexsoft.com, and somebody will get back to you usually quite quickly in relation to what it is that you want to discuss. Then we'll raise that on our system as part of possible future development, and we'll try and get as much information in there as we can where that will become a bit of an issue. But yeah, it's not something I myself personally I've ever come across, so it would be useful to get some more information from you if you wouldn't mind passing that along.
That's brilliant, thank you.
Okay. So as you can see, I've populated sort of my own frame just here, and I've picked this frame specifically, and I've done these sort of levels on the drawing here, which might be something some of you are familiar with seeing within the likes of things like plant rooms, and these sorts of things showing us the location and floor which a board has been provided on. And typically within electrical OM, whenever we're adding a new single phase final circuit, we would have only fixed lengths on the load. So here, for instance, if I added a single phase or a 3-phase circuit to this distribution board, I'm just going to remove the compact mode here. You'll see that it comes with a fixed length of cable, and if I try and grab this and drag it, it won't move around. So let's say from this board, this was actually being supplied for a specialist piece of equipment on another level here. I wouldn't be able to physically move that in its location. So what we did is we created a new item for final circuits called floating loads. They behave exactly the same as how we have with any final circuit. However, what we're able to do now with these, so if I add in a single phase circuit here, I can now grab this single phase floating load. I can now grab this and I can move this to any particular level where it might be. So if this is supplying an isolator somewhere on the roof, for instance, I can now place this in the relevant location on my drawing. So it's just more functionality in terms of the way that we can lay out and make more information clear in terms of the data required for whatever your term of your drawing is. We did originally have this out on our last beta, but it was only available for 3-phase floating loads, but now we also have single phase as well as 3-phase floating loads available here.
Yeah, no, that's good. We've had 2 other questions come in, so I'll take them in order. So the first one is, with multiple users, when the final certificates or reports are produced, is there a central repository to store the documents for auditing and compliance, etc.?
Yes. So I'm assuming you're talking more about sort of the UK forms for certificates and reporting.
I think that, yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. Within the UK forms, the UK forms does hold a database of information. Now it's important to remember that when we're using electrical OM, for each project we have here, so this is one particular source for a building with possibly other sources in terms of generators and those sorts of things, but everything in this file is saved in this sort of central location, or wherever you've decided to save it here on this machine. If you're working in an environment where you have multiple versions of the license on multiple machines, the best thing to do is to save your files to a location which is common to everybody. So you may have a server with a drive of some description which everyone can access no matter what computer they're logged into or what location they're logged to when with the software. If I go to the UK forms here, when we go into the UK forms, I've got the settings menu just here. So when we go in here, I'm going to go to the database item here, and we've got an item called database settings. Now in the database settings, we can use this to store a runtime access file, which will log information about what certificates have been created and the drive locations and where they've been saved. Where this comes in handy then is later on, if we go to our certificate registry, here I can see various certificates and reports that have been generated, and I can also see the location of the files where they've been then placed, where they've been saved. So if I was to select any of these particular locations and double click, it will actually open, might have one that save locally here. So it will then actually open this project with those certificates and reports in them that we had on there. So here I've actually opened up the whole file. If I go to schematic, I can see the layout of that particular installation. So there is a way there that can be done, but obviously those files, that information needs to be saved at a location which is common for everybody to be able to access. If you're saving locally on your own computer and you shut off that computer, or you're not logged onto it from another computer or another location, you will not be able to access that then. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks, Spencer. We've had another one come in as well, so we've got 2 more to go. So the second one says, does it do cable calculations for single cables? And can this be done remotely? I.e., if you've got, a team on site, can they, quickly use the software to work out, the cable calcs, etc.
Okay, so sort of as a 2-part question there. In answer to the second item there, which is sort of a quick item on site, unless you have a laptop on site with the desktop software on it, no. The mobile app, in terms of what it does within the software, collects data and also receives data from the core software. So you can update information and return information. Single cable calc is actually something that I've been asked about a few times in the past, and one of the features we have in and around this is actually what we refer to as templating. So here I've got this little orange icon just up here where we've got our tree network, which is going to bring up my template section here. So previously what I've done is I've created various types of information or supplies, and I've actually created a template called single cable calc. So I've done one for a sort of a single phase and one for a 3-phase. So I'm going to copy this and then I can just paste this into my area here. So my cable's already in place with a protected device for whatever it might be. So all I have to do now is go into the circuit edit and then change the information relevant to this particular installation. So for instance, it's going to be in multi-core 90-degree armored. I know that it's going to be roughly around about 100 meters, and it's going to have a load on it of 3000 watts. So then the information immediately is going to show us then what our cable issues are. I can increase that cable size then to accommodate for any particular issues, and that's pretty much how I'm showing people at the moment how to do a quick cable calc. So once you've set it up, you can save this as a template, and to save this as a template, I simply selected the supply that I'd created there, right click and then save as template, and it creates a new template item there, which you can open to any new project that you create on the software.
Yeah, no, that's really handy. And then the last question was, will the floating loads be able to be selected through the Revit interface, or is it only CAD?
That's a good question, which I don't actually know the answer to. So when we're looking at the Revit interface, when we're exporting from Revit and bringing it in, we have the ability to obviously assign information to certain types of distribution boards and some loads as well. So before it's exported, you would select, say, a distribution board, and you would identify this item as being specifically a switchboard, or you might specify it as being a UPS or a transfer switch, or whatever it is you've designed there in the Revit environment. Unfortunately, I don't have your specific answer there, but if later on I will get your details and I will get an answer sent out to you in relation to that.
Brill.
No problem. Excellent. So the last thing we spoke about then was the floating loads. So the next item is what we are calling a unknown network component. This has come around from various queries we've had from people in relation to they've gone to a site which is already existing, and they're adding into a system where they don't have all the information, or they don't have any previous EICR data to show what's upstream of where they're adding. So they might be going into the location to add a distribution board or a couple of final circuits or whatever it might be, and don't have access to the whole site all the time to assess the rest of the site to get to the point on the drawing that they need. So here I've just added a standard switchboard. This could be your supply as well, where you've just come into the building. And you then have a number of ways coming off that to various locations around the site. When we put in our supply information, obviously we're putting in details relating to the main incoming supply. So we're looking at the fault levels at the supply, we're looking at what our ZEs and these sorts of things are, which is very difficult to do on a site where you don't have a lot of information for what's between your supply and where you're going to be adding your board. Maybe you only got a little bit of upstream information on the upstream board. So I'm going to select this board here, right click, go to our insert menu, and we've added this as a new connection type called unknown network here. So we've got 3-phase and single phase items. I'm just going to select the 3-phase for this particular example. So here now, this might come from your main switchboard. You might have 5, 6, 7 boards, whatever it might be, between this board and where you're connecting to your new board from. So here from this point now, if I double click on this, I can now specify, so if you've been to site and we've done some testing at the upstream board and you have information like the power factor at that board and the ZDB, here we're referring to it as ZE within the software, but we can then put that information then directly in here and we can continue our fault calculations on from that result value at that point there. So here then I can add in our new distribution board, whatever it might be. So this might be on one location on the site, and then a completely different location off a different board. Again, I might have another unknown network point. Like so, and again, I can add in another board or another circuit as necessary in relation to that particular location. So where you've got quite large sites, which are all coming from a single supply, then you are able to then model what you need to in respect to that specific work you're doing on that site without having to go to the nth degree to find out what's already pre-existing within the system. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's a really handy feature, that, you know, and that's going to be used quite commonly. That's quite a common occurrence, isn't it, across all sorts of installs?
Yeah, we're getting quite a few queries about that over last year. I mean, we had several companies, one particular company who was installing several motors across a large factory where they didn't really have much in the way of historic data there. So that came in very, very handy.
In essence, it just makes, you know, the design more accurate, doesn't it? So it's handy. It's really good. Yeah.
Excellent. Right then. So the next item we're going to take a look then is probably one of the bigger ones that we've done in the last period, which is the FastTest integration. We received quite a lot of calls, quite a lot of requests from people who weren't even using the software to find out whether or not they would be able to import their legacy information from FastTest. For those of you who might not know, FastTest or the Trimble software, they ceased support for the software late last year, sometime in November. And there's very limited scope, or very limited places you can now go to continue using that legacy information. So as part of the requests that we were seeing coming in, we actually developed a tool now to import FastTest data where necessary into Electrical OM. And us being us as well, we added a lot of bells and whistles in there to go with it as well. So I'm just going to create a new project here. So I'm going to bring in a project from FastTest, which has been done in terms of an EICR on an installation. I've picked intentionally quite a large installation with a lot of circuits, a lot of boards in there. So this might take a moment to load up, but I'm just going to take you through the process of how we can bring in that data. So the first thing you'll have to do is obviously export the data from your current FastTest database. Once you have that fast test file, which will come out as sort of a zip file there, we can come to Electrical OM and to the file and import. We're currently registering this as fast test beta because we have tested as far as we can, but we like to see a lot of feedback coming from our customers in terms of improvements and how we can make sure that this is working the way it needs to work, ensuring that we're getting all the data and information from that as well. So here I'm going to select the fast test beta, and you're going to be met with this screen just here. The next thing I need to do now is locate the file that we exported from fast test. So here I'm going to go to browse, and I'm going to select this building just here. So this is a project that was sent to us. I'm going to open this up, and we can see that we've got a particular location here for a building. And if I open it up here, I can see how the information was broken down into fast test. So generally it will break it down information from the boards, and then we also have our certificates, and then this is categorized into draft certificates and master certificates. So I'm going to select the master certificates here, and I can see that I've got an EICR that was completed within fast test. So I'm going to grab this here and I'm going to tell it I want to add this circuit with all the DB information, or this certificate with all the DB information directly into our UK form. So here I can see that this has actually got 73 distribution boards with it here. So if I open this now, go to the UK forms, you can see that it's pulled the report in here straight from fast test. It would have pulled most of the information. Some of the information won't show because these will be related to items in our own database. So your client information and those sorts of things would be put into our own database here. You can see all the observations from that report have also been pulled in from that data as well. And if I go to the distribution boards, we can see again all the test information, all the information to do with the devices that was used has all been brought in here into the reports as well. If I go back to our schematic view just here, the other thing now that we can also do is I can open up this report and I can see the different boards that were in here. I can either bring these in individually, but I'm going to select the top board just here. I'm going to tell it to add this now and create a schematic from all the data in this EICR. So I'm just going to select this here. And as you can see, it's going to start searching through and generating the information. So what's happening here is it's searching through all the file information. It's pulling all the cable sizes, protected devices, cable lengths, the topology of the system, and the software is now building it into a readable format that we can then display within Electrical OM. So we're taking all this historic data and helping to produce some hopefully quite useful and meaningful data. I'm trying to talk over this a little bit because this will take a moment because there's so many boards there. So in the meantime, is there any other questions that have popped up that I can answer while we're waiting?
Nothing so far, Matt.
No problem. Yeah, this is quite a large installation. So I did try this a little bit earlier just to make sure sort of the timing. It is quite a large installation.
How long did it take to develop this this beta?
So I think we were sort of starting to get asked around this sort of middle of last year. And we started, I think, looking at the development sort of August. So we started putting some stuff together, trying out how the files information was being built up, and how we would then address that into the system. I think we finally actually finished development early December to actually get a beta that was workable. So here you can see it's pulled all the information. You can see here we've got now various boards and information. Now all the information has been brought into what we refer to as compact mode here. So if I go to any of these particular boards and leave the compact mode, you will also see sort of the final circuits. Final circuits are always visible here on the tree network, but hopefully you can see one of the other interesting things as well is the software's been able to decipher from the data what's a lighting circuit, what's a socket circuit, what's a cooker circuit, and as you can see, we've been able to then apply the correct symbols for that type of system as well within the software. If I go into any of these, so for instance, I'm going to just select this socket circuit and I go to our test tab, you can see the historic test data that's been brought over as well in terms of the data for those particular that circuit. But also, one of the great things about the software that we can do with this data now is we can go a few steps further. And if I scroll down and we see here our warning system, we can also see any errors where we've got issues between the device ratings, the cable sizes. So we can see we've got quite a few issues here between coordination of our devices and cable sizes. We can see that there's various issues to do with the disconnection times based upon the manufacturer and the type of device that's been selected. And as I go down, we can even go down and see as far as things like volt drop issues, which are now clear on the system. So we've taken the values like the R1, R2 values, and we've been able to use that information to estimate what the length of the cable run is, which is then give us an idea of what the volt drop levels should be for that system. So we can see where we've exceeded those volt drop levels. And then we can also go all the way down to the test data as well. So we can compare what the maximum test results were for the ZS rating against the R1, R2 values, and we can give an idea of sort of where the information is not matching, how far out from what we would expect the calculated values and things to be there. So we're taking all this data and we're trying to make it all very meaningful. So the next time you go back and you do a test on this installation, it will keep adding new lines here to the test data as well. So over a period of time, you can also see all that data. This also works with the existing data. So for each certificate or report that I bring in, so if I've got a larger installation with multiple EICRs or multiple installation certificates, you can bring all that data in for each of those circuits multiple times. So you'll be able to see all the historic test data for each individual circuit from all the different reports, and you can start to see things like trends, deterioration in the test results, so things like deterioration of installation resistance. You can also pick out then odd results where suddenly there's been a massive change in the test results coming back. So it might be a faulty meter, it might be a faulty engineer, you never know. And so the information there hopefully becomes more meaningful to help with the overall maintenance of that system.
That's brilliant. Yeah, no, that's excellent. And it was actually quite good that you demonstrated a large installation there.
Yeah.
And you know, it actually translated it quite quickly. I thought that was well good.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to show that, you know, that it can really handle the data and what we're trying to pull the information from. So now I've got this. I mean, you can see it's laid it out really quite nicely, hopefully, in terms of the information, but I can then break this down so we can turn this into various pages through. I can send this to its own page now, and I can break this down further as well. I could put boards on their own individual pages or sections on their own individual pages. We can then develop frames. So it might be an installation where they don't have any historic drawings or data about their installation, so you can then produce that directly in the software with, you know, relatively minimal effort. You know, so I can drop a frame on that now if I want to do so. Let's give it something like an A2 landscape. I can drop that in now, and we've got our various other tools here as well. So we can automatically generate things like keys and legends and also circuit charts and this sorts of information as well. So you can produce some really professional drawings quite quickly then for to go along with your EICRs as you go. I know some guys that have really been using this to its absolute maximum out there in terms of producing their data. I think I saw on LinkedIn one guy produced a report which was nearly 900 pages long for a set of railway station. But the data was so well laid out. It was, you know, it had, you know, real useful applications for the clients at the end of the day.
No, you can definitely see that. We have had another question coming. It's sort of kind of related to it. It says, if an EICR is carried out on site, can the information be keyed in directly to the app, or does it need to be handwritten and inputted at the head office?
You can do it either way. So the information for the mobile, you can export. So if I brought this now into Electrical OM, I can now export this entire system out to our mobile app. So we have the mobile EOM export. I don't have my tablet plugged into my computer at the moment to show, but I could export this out to the whole system out to a tablet. I can even break it down into smaller parts. So if you've got multiple engineers out on site, I can send this part to that engineer, this set of boards to another engineer, They can then go and complete the testing on the mobile app and check that the data's right compared to what's on there. They can then send that back in, and when we import, the software will immediately pick out where things like devices have been changed, protected devices or cable sizes, but it will then also bring all the test data back in immediately, and obviously then put it into where we said here, our test data. Then that information can be brought into any new report here. So if you've started a brand new form, say you've started a new EICR and the data is not currently in here, you can use, and we were going to cover this feature in a little while, but we might as well cover it now. You can use the mobile EOM data tab here, so you can import the test results from individual files as well. So like I said, if you sent them out to different people in different locations, you can import that data directly over the top into and populate your fields as necessary within here. This is an existing report. I wouldn't probably do this in here. I would probably go in and just create a whole new report for my EICR or whatever it might be on this particular installation.
Thank you.
Excellent. So we covered another one of the updates, which was the mobile EOM mobile integration. Previously, with the mobile app, it would only import directly into the circuit edit here, and then you would have to transfer that data by creating a new report. Now you can create a report beforehand, like I said, and when we go in here, you can actually import then individual file, board data, test results directly into your certificate or report, whatever it might be. One of the other main updates that we've also included, so again, you might have someone that's gone out and done a report on site, so they've collected the EICR data, you can bring in photos and all sorts of things from a mobile app, but when the data's come back in, I did mention here we've got various information that's been populated here in relation to things like the maximum ZS's, there's issues with the design there, we've got it's picked up some non-compliances with some of the methods of installation. Here we've got various things to do with selectivity on the earth fault and also on overcurrent between devices. So all these items, generally things like the voltage drop limits and those sorts of things wouldn't be picked up by the guys who are doing testing on site. They may not necessarily see that information or be able to calculate that information directly at site. They may not understand how to do that sometimes. So within the reports now, when we've generated these items, I can go back into my EICR, I can go to my observations, and we can now import and add all these items from the warning. So if I select any of the particular items and I was to select this here, it will, or a range of items, it will add all those warnings into our system, so we can then mark against what that issue is. So here I've just added this one, which I selected from here. So you can see here that the total voltage drop of the circuit and traces over the maximum limit of 5%. And now I can then code that and add any attachments as necessary where we go. So we can take information that we're checking against the design and put it back into our EICRs. Again, we're making more use of the design data and criteria in terms of then reporting and letting our clients know potential issues that they may have with their installations.
Yeah, that's really good. In terms of that coding and stuff, have you got like best practice guide folder and integrated into it as well, or is that just down to the designer / engineer to make up their own minds as to what they would code a specific item?
Well, we can do both. So in here we do have obviously engineers can select and code accordingly as they see fit, but we also do have templates here. So anybody with the software, again, they create their own template. So I started creating a few here. I'm in the midst of actually creating sort of a list of various observations and those sorts of things with some, some relatively generic classifications. Obviously, classification codes are going to vary from site to site, particularly in different industries. So, something you would code one way in an industrial environment wouldn't necessarily code the same way in a domestic environment, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of variation there. So in terms of things like the best practice guide, if you wanted to put something like that together, anyone with the software can do it, and then you can export this list and you can share it with anybody you want to share it with. So you can create and generate your own templates, you can export that, and then anyone can import your list that you've done into that version of the software as well. So it really is sort of an open book for people to create their own. So, you know, if somebody wanted to create one that was all to, you know, BG4, they could, and then they could share that with anybody they wished. Sorry, Saeed, have we lost you there?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. No, I was just saying that's brilliant. That's really good. Really good. You know, you've thought of everything. You know, you're making my life really easy, which is what I'm happy about. That's excellent.
It's one of the things we try to do. I mean, the idea of the software is to be a tool. This software has never been designed to replace the engineer. To use this, you need to have engineering understanding. You need to understand design process. You do need to understand the industry in which you're working in to make the tool useful. But hopefully, what the tools in here do will drastically reduce, you know, time and human error in terms of what you're trying to produce there, and flag up anything really which would help the designer make any design decisions which would help improve that system as well. So the last couple of items I'm just going to go over on the updates here is around the CAD plan design. So we have our CAD plan design, which allows us to bring in architectural floor plans and place in things like our socket outlets and cables and take calculated measurements directly from our drawings. We've added some new features around the CAD as well. So there's some new CAD functionality in there, but what we've also done is we've increased our CAD file support. So more of the latest CAD files from different developers like AutoCAD and those sorts of things are now supported within the software, so you can bring those in as X references. And we've also added a layer of PDF vector support. What this means is if I try to bring in an X reference now of a CAD file or a sorry, a PDF file. So here's one I made earlier. So I've just taken a drawing from a PDF file and I've dropped it in here. But the software has now been able to identify where all the lines are in the PDF file. So when we're dropping things like our, so for instance, if I want to drop a socket outlet on here, something along those lines, you'll see that it'll actually now track with the walls and the shapes that we have on the objects there. So there's a level of intelligence that it knows where the lines and things are within those PDF files. So you don't always have to have specifically a drawing file in order to produce good quality drawings information. I suppose there was any other questions there?
No, nothing else has come through.
Fantastic. So those are the main updates that we've done in the last software update. There were a lot more updates than what we've actually covered here. If you want to know more, we have the knowledge base and the forums. If you're in the software, they're really easy to access. So here, if I go to the help menu and select the knowledge base, it's going to bring up the web page with the knowledge base information on it. A lot of what I've been going through here is here where we go to Electrical OM version updates. And you can see this is the latest update of information. So here you can see a breakdown of all the various updates that we've done in the last upgrade of the system. So you can go through and you can look at this various information yourself. So here, for instance, if I go to the cables and conductors, you can see all the different cables that have specifically been added. And if you select on them, it will tell you exactly where you need to go and where you can find this information and data as well. So the knowledge base is extremely useful for anyone in that respect as well. Also, we like to promote the fact that we have the forum. So again, if I go to the help menu and select the forum here, it will bring up the web page. You can sign up in the forum, go in, you can ask questions from other people who are working in the industry. Also, our guys will be on there and replying to any questions and queries that go on there. So do try to make use of the forum where you can. So hopefully those bits of information are there. We're always very contactable. So through the website, you will be able to find various ways of contacting us. We've got contact numbers, we've got the live chat online, these sorts of things. So please get in touch. And if you do have anything that you require in the software, which is going to be quite important to the daily running of the various businesses and the way that you're doing design, or you're looking at your compliance aspects of the software, let us know. We do everything we can to make sure that where necessary we get those updates in the software, so it makes it easier for everyone to work in these systems.
That was brilliant. Thank you very much, Spencer. I've got a couple of final questions now. These are sort of my own questions. They're in relation to Amendment 2. So when will the software be ready for, to accommodate the Amendment 2 changes? Will that be straight after it's been published?
So obviously we'll see what all the changes are coming in Amendment 2. And we'll get those out as soon as possible. Generally, we hopefully within a few days, because we are aware, obviously, there's lots coming. We've seen the drafts of public comment, so we've got a rough idea of what to expect. So, but we'll be there at the various ECA shows coming up as well. So when there is updates and we do put something out, obviously we'll displaying all this information and putting it out there at the shows as well. So you'll see all the things, any changes in the UK forms, and anything really that's going to affect the way that we do design or calculations within the software. Obviously those will get priority straight away to be immediately available to everybody as soon as possible.
No, that's excellent. You've covered my second question with that anyway. It was about the our ECA event, so that's perfect. No, thank you very much.
Excellent. If there are any more questions, I'm happy to open up the floor to anything about the software briefly, just to finish us off. But in the meantime, I shall hand us back to, I think, Omar for anything he wants to say.
Thank you very much, Spencer, and thank you to both of our presenters today. Spencer for that really in-depth demo of the new features included in Electrical OM, and Shahid for your insight and your questions as well. Before we sign off, Spencer, you mentioned the forum and your website, but is there anywhere else that we can find you and reach out to you for any more questions? An email address maybe?
Yeah, so you can email us quite easily. So you can either email at info@modicsoft.com. We've also got support@modicsoft.com for anyone requiring support. If you want to email me directly and ask any questions, it's spencer@modicsoft.com. So we're extremely contactable. Generally, anyone that puts in a question, if we don't answer the phone or reply straight away, you usually get a response within the hour, if not much less, in 99% of cases.
Excellent, thank you, Spencer. And just before we sign off for the afternoon, if you're watching and you are an ECA member, remember that you are eligible to purchase the Electrical OM ECA members bundle. It's an exclusive offer only for ECA members, where you are entitled to 15% off the current retail price. And the Amendment 2 Roadshow, ECA Roadshow, has also been mentioned today. If you are keen to join us, we'll be at various locations around the UK, starting from the 29th of March, I believe. Do head straight over to eca.co.uk/project18-roadshow, and you'll find all the information you need there. A final thank you to our presenters and panelists, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much.